So about 7 months ago, Apple introduced this, the iPhone 10, and it sort of changed the whole smartphone industry. That's because Apple decided to go for a almost bezel-less look, but it didn't want to sacrifice the components at the top, such as an earpiece and a selfie camera and a proximity sensor that have been a staple of smartphones. So this this area, which Apple calls housing unit, it has been nicknamed the notch, and it's been the most hotly debated divisive topic in smartphone of 2018. That's because almost all Android smartphones, including the LG G7 and the OnePlus 6 and the Huawei P20 Pro, has copied or followed this notch look. The only exception is the Samsung Galaxy S9, which still kept a traditional top bezel. But the Vivo Nex, it's a new type of phone. It manages to get rid of the notch with no bezel at all without sacrificing the three components. So the first thing, proximity sensor. Vivo managed to cram the proximity sensor underneath the display, and it still works. As for the earpiece, there is no earpiece in this phone, but instead the phone uses a bone conduction technology that vibrates sound through the screen to your ears. And in several test phone calls, I was able to hear the other end loud and clear. So now, the last element left is a selfie camera, and what the Vivo do? Check this out. So it's a pop-up component. So anytime you go into the camera app and you go into the selfie mode, the camera will pop up from the top. When you're not using the selfie camera, when you're using the main camera, the camera pops back down. And it pops up pretty smoothly, pretty fast. And in my 5 days of testing so far, I've had no issues. And it seems to be pretty stable. You can't, it doesn't wobble. But at the same time, I am a little bit concerned about durability, because if you're using this phone long term, every day, that means this thing will pop up and down maybe 1,000, 2,000 times throughout the course of a year. Or maybe if you're into selfies a lot more, it might pop up and down 5,000 times throughout the course of a year. So how will that hold up? This is still ultimately a motorized part, and it might break eventually. So I do wonder about that. But so far, no issues. Everything about this phone, it's pretty cutting edge. So the processor inside is a Snapdragon 845 with 8 gigs of RAM. That's the most powerful combination possible in Android. As you can see, everything is super fast, super smooth. So like with previous Vivo devices, you can get around the phone using swipe gestures, which I like a lot. It's a little bit more futuristic than using traditional Android buttons. So you can swipe from the left to go back, swipe from the middle to go home, or you swipe from the right side to bring up this control panel. So much like the Vivo X21, the Nex also uses an under-screen fingerprint reader, and the technology has been fine-tuned a little bit. It's a little bit faster than before, and a little bit more accurate and less likely to misscan. So it just happened a little bit right there, but overall, I would say there's a 95-96% success rate, which is still not as good as a dedicated hardware fingerprint sensor, but it's definitely usable, and it's really cool that you can unlock your phone just by putting your finger on a screen. The back of the phone is made of glass, and it's quite similar to just about every other phone we've seen so far. The two cameras on the back, you have a 12 megapixel main shooter and a 5 megapixel secondary lens that is used to detect depth of field. So that means that is used solely for bokeh effect. And looking at photo samples, I would say overall this is a strong camera, although not the best. Can't compare it to something like an iPhone 10 or a Samsung Galaxy S9, but this is a bokeh shot, so you see the effect turns out pretty natural. And in low light situation, I do find that the image there's a little bit of noise and a little bit loss of detail. So this is an above average low light shot. This is not a bad photo at all, but something like the Huawei P20 Pro or the Samsung Galaxy S9 will produce something a little bit better. So the Vivo Nex is priced at about $820 US, which is around 5,000 RMB, 5,000 yuan. That's a little bit pricey for a Vivo device, because something like a OnePlus 6, it's several hundred US cheaper, and Vivo's previous two phones was also about 100 to 150 US cheaper. So the question you want to ask is, do you really want to pay a premium to get all this kind of cutting edge tech? in my opinion, I think this phone, it's ideal for enthusiasts or gadget geeks. But if you're a normal consumer, you might be better off buying something with a notch, because the notch doesn't really get in the way.